within the first month and a half, we had over 45 customers to this solution at $300 a month.
There's so much unrealized value with this AI and technology. Like for me, that's a significant difference people don't understand.
If you are not implementing AI in your business, I actually wrote a post. I said, by the end of 2025, you will be out of business.
Jonathan, officially welcome to the podcast. Jonathan, you're a member of the community. You've sold AI automations, I guess, as an AI agency, and you've got a business that's really super successful. So we want to jump on, have a conversation, shoot the breeze, see what's up, and just I know you, you're awesome. You had so much value in the community. You've shared so much wisdom with other people. We just want to chat through like real life examples of like what is actually happening with like AI agency conversations. How are things being sold? How do you actually price things? Just a real life example, real life human being saying, look, this is what I did. Here's how I made money. And then we can kind of like riff on where things are going and like maybe some cool stuff people could like take away.
Yeah.
So we'll cover some really cool stuff. So bro, kicking off dude, you've had quite an interesting background. When did you first get into AI, the AI side of things? You were in the Navy before that. Like, where did you begin? Like, how did you first enter the AI sphere, man?
Oh, wow. So I entered the AI sphere, I want to say 2017.
Wow. Okay. That's quite early,
So
actually. Yeah.
this is way before ChatGPT and things like that. And back then when I got into it, I've been in tech. So I spent 30 years as an IT person, working with Microsoft products and things like that. And as I got up in ranks, right now I'm president of Symbiont Incorporated. I started getting more detached from the technical side and working more on the business side of things, right? Leadership side of things. And when the AI came out, I'm trying to think what I was doing. But back then, it was around just chatbots, right? Making chatbots that were intelligent, that did not require you to program every single thing it said, right? You just could enter context. So I started looking and delving into that a little bit, got involved with Stable Diffusion around the whole creating images and stuff like that. Worked with a lot of Google Colab notebooks
Yeah,
at that
absolutely.
time. Jupyter notebooks. And it just kind of evolved. And then when ChatGPT came out, well, let me back up. I got so involved that Microsoft at the time had a chat creation bot that you could program and create bots with. And it was clunky back then because it was all new at the time. So I actually did it's been so long. But I made a course on Udemy. I made an Udemy course on how to make chatbots using the Microsoft bot builder. That's what it was called at the time,
Interesting.
and got a lot of traction on that. I was really surprised because I thought it was just going to be this little niche thing, but a lot of people were sending questions and buying the course and everything else. And so then after that, I kind of chilled out on it. I kept an eye on it, and then a few years ago, when ChatGPT came out, people who were in my course started contacting me and saying, "Hey, you were teaching this, 6 years ago," and I was like, "Well, yeah, but it's a lot easier with what they're doing because all you have to do is just type in and it gives you a response." But yeah, it's basically runs around the same premise. It's a bot, and they've connected it to a LLM at the time. Well, they actually create their LLM, and then they put the interface in front of it. And so I watched it, and everybody was saying, "Oh, wow, this is neat. This is neat." Well, I got bored with ChatGPT after like 2 months, I think it was. Right? It came out in November. I think I was like the first week I was in it. And about 2 months later, I was just bored because I was like, well, okay, great. You can just type in a question and it'll give you this nice stuff. So then I started looking at things like the API and the platform. And then that's when I started putting it together like, okay, so I can make solutions back-ended with this LLM. And that's how I just got started. One night I was bored and I was on YouTube and I saw this dude. He looked like a California surfer dude
Mm-hmm.
with a British accent,
Yeah.
talking about AI. And it was like a mind, I was like, whoa, I had to stop, like, what's going on here, because, and that was you, of course, Jack.
Yeah.
And I started watching what you were doing and what you're doing with Make, and, you're adding other modules, which is similar things that I was trying to do. And I said, wow, okay, let me keep watching your videos. And I think a little while after that, I became a member of the community. And based on my 30 years of IT experience, along with my experience of IT, initially I didn't say much, but I started just, answering a question here or there, like, well, look at this or check this out. And then, as you've noticed in the community, I've become more vocal over the
Yeah,
last few months
absolutely.
of, stepping up and saying, hey, do this, do that type of thing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting your background because it feels like everyone has a different entrance point to getting into AI. But what seems to me to be like undeniable now is you can't not know about it. Like I can't actually perceive of a professional industry where upskilling yourself in AI and automations is not going to be of immense value to you. Like the market that's emerging is absolutely insane. I mean,
Mhm.
how would you compare it? Because your business, did you have that around the dot-com boom? And how would you compare those two things together? Because I think it's like in some ways comparable, but the difference is that there's so much unrealized value with this AI and technology. Like for me, that's a significant difference people don't understand. Like with in the year 2000, I think if you had a .com on it, I think anyone was writing you a check basically for investment. Um, but with AI, I don't think. I mean, there's some froth at the surface level, but fundamentally, like the untapped value is absolutely insane. And like the market for selling products, either in the capacity of an agency or working with businesses, is so untapped. I mean, the potential jobs that can be automated away, the efficiencies, the actual real life pounds and pounds of dollars and cents, subject to wherever you live, is enormous. And I say this all the time. 3 months ago, I was in a dentist, and she said, "Jack, have you heard of this ChatGPT thing?" I was like, "No, I've never heard of it. Well, what's it about?" People are still at this top of the funnel, and people like yourself, Jonathan, who've been interested in technology, have that background. It's interesting to see how you entered it. So how do you kind of like how do you hold this like how much AI has blown up in the past couple of years? Because you've been involved with it since 2017. How have you seen that trend?
Straight up,
Yeah.
right? If AI was a fighter jet, it would be like it just took off and it went straight up. It's not, didn't do any of this, it's going straight up. It's interesting you bring up the .com boom. I was in IT during that time period.
Wow. Okay.
I saw the craziness back then. To show you the effect of AI compared to the .com, I mean, this is 97, 98, right? We were talking about, internet and websites. That was all it was. With the .com boom, if you say, look, it actually started earlier in the 90s, but if you just use 97 as like a point where most companies are saying, hey, what's this internet thing? It really wasn't until around 2000, 2001, 2002 that it became like, if you don't have a website, you are ancient.
Your toast. Yeah.
Now, let's look at ChatGPT and AI. And it's public awareness, right? Because AI has been around for over 50 years. It's just in the public consciousness now. That ChatGPT came out, what, 2021, was it, or 22? Here we are at 2025, and we're already hearing, if you are not implementing AI in your business, I actually wrote a post. I said, by the end of 2025, you will be out of business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have it in some way. That's a lot faster than what the .com was. Um, the app, it's more applicable now. Right now we're seeing the agents, right? The rise of the agents, voice agents, all these agents coming up. You cannot expect to be successful or remain successful or even viable unless you are implementing AI in some way in your business. So that is a huge opportunity for people who have skills around business and automation with AI. Huge opportunities there. Notice I chose my words very carefully. You and I have had discussions about this whole AI automation agency thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to get a lot of haters here, but I just don't believe it. I just don't. It's not. That is not a viable business to me. The business is, what do you know and how can you make solutions using AI? But just to say, I have an agency that can do AI, well, and again, if you want to, we could talk about that more in depth, but you're almost being insulting to business owners overall, and that can be a turnoff to them. So yeah, it's the trajectory is high. There's a huge opportunity, a lot of our, not just a lot of several opportunities coming up, and it's one of those things where it's like every week it seems something new comes out that's like whoa, and
100%.
now you have the true successful people around AI automation. How do you build those together? And that's what I love about watching your videos. You show, here's a solution, here's a module, here's a front end, put it all together, make it do this, right? It's not a matter of, oh, I just use ChatGPT to come up with answers. You're like, no, that's not going to give you a solution.
We were using different tools, right? It's an interesting point you mentioned because we've spoken about this, and it's a good one to drill down to actually. People, I don't believe anybody is saying that we need to get an AI automation agency into this business to apply AI. They more think about it in terms of problem statements and therefore what is a solution to that problem statement. For example, I think it's probably at some point worth building this out on a chart, but I think people will fall into different categories. And I also believe it's vastly different based on the size of the business. Enterprise clients at the top, I really believe benefit a lot more from, typically they have quite established customer acquisition pipelines. They benefit a lot from automations because of the economies of scale that they have. What people don't, I mean, I think that's the real huge opportunity actually selling enterprise solutions to businesses. What we know happens a lot though is existing software providers, those individuals with existing relationships say, hey, we're integrating AI into our existing technology
Mm-hmm.
stack. For example, Salesforce,
Yep.
CRM. If you control the data, if you control the flow of the emails or where all the customer data is stored, it's easy just to sprinkle AI on top of that than it is to get an agency to come in. So I think there's like an emergence of a consultancy space where if you start with the problem, work backwards. Sometimes the answer is to automate, and sometimes it isn't. It depends really on what's driving the problem question. One of the things I love that you said that this AI automation agency has become a buzzword. I don't think we are, first of all, in terms of the market adoption curve, like technology adoption curve, we are way to the left. I talked about before how because the technology is changing so much, change creates opportunity. What's good today is probably not going to be great tomorrow. That is a good thing. That's great news. And building expertise in that area is a beneficial thing. But I think starting from the position of, no one actually says, I want an AI automation agency. They say, I want to solve a particular problem. It doesn't
Yes.
really exist in my conversations and work I've done in the field. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. Have always been, Jack, I want to build a chatbot, or Jack, I want to automate LinkedIn, or I'd like to automate this. I mean, I had a TikTok creator reach out to me who basically said they wanted to automate the metrics of different TikTok channels for sponsorship deals. And it was like, it wasn't really like a consultancy thing. It was more like, this is something that I would love to do. He'd never said, I want an agency to come and grab me by the collar and check me about. And I think there's a fundamental difference there. And it seems to have got a lot of resonance. People start with the outcome. And we just get to the point where the sort of tails wagging the dog a lot there.
You know, what you outlined, this is the that's the question of the ages, right? Ever since there's been business, it's always been, I have the problem. How do I solve for it? That's it.
That's it.
I don't care if you were a grain dealer back in Egypt in 200 BC, all the way up to a multinational company. It's the same question every single time. And at the end of the day, as a business owner, and you're a business owner too, we really don't care. I don't care if you use AI. I don't care if you use a duck with a yellow ribbon around its neck.
Yeah,
Whatever. Fix my problem,
exactly.
right? Now, if you have in your tool chest the ability to use AI and you can figure out how can I solve this problem and use AI, great. But if it's just a matter of, talk about clients. I had a client, they wanted a chatbot. They said, hey, we need a chatbot to handle customer queries. Okay. First of all, as a professional, I always get leery when a customer tells me what they want exactly when it comes to technology. Because I'm like, okay, so you've been reading something somewhere. So before I jump in 2 feet with this chatbot, let me ask a few more questions. And one of those questions is, okay, so what are the problems we're having right now? Well, our agents, they are not getting the information, they're not getting the correct information, or it's too slow, or what have you. Well, when you start peeling back that onion, I realized like, well, it's not really a chatbot issue. What your issue is your data is kind of all over the place. It's in different systems. The poor agents have to go to different places to get the stuff. And the chatbot's going to have to do the same thing. If I were to make a chatbot, I have to make all these different connections, and who knows what it's going to come up with, especially when you throw an LLM on top of it and it says, oh, I'm going to synthesize this data. And, you want to know what your last order was, and it's trying to cross sell you,
Yeah.
And so it was getting to that core. First, let's fix this problem. So just by helping them organize their data, putting the information in systems that worked and needed to work with it, they already saw a increase in their customer experience because the agents were able to get to where they need to go. Now you can work on, okay, if you want to make it even faster, or if you want to make it 24/7, now let's put a chatbot on top of it and then see what we do there. But again, that's how come my big thing about the whole AI automation agency is not every problem needs AI.
Mm.
Every problem could use AI, but that's true for anything. But first, you have to understand where's the customer coming from, what is their real pain points, how can we get this fixed. There was an article I just read, and it's something we've known for years. The majority of organizations are not ready for AI from a data perspective,
That's
right?
very true. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. You're like, dude, this is a complete mess. How are you gotta cleanse this data, you gotta filter this data and sanitize it before I can even bring an AI solution in here. And I think there's a big market for that. So if you're just coming in with a hammer saying I can just hammer nails, that's fine as long as those nails are straight. But when it comes to data and AI, not all those nails are straight. So can you take that step back and say, look, it's going to take 6 months just to get your data right,
That's
and
true.
then after that, then we can move forward.
And by the way, I've seen like one of the largest companies in the UK, like when I worked for it, we had this like scale of data maturity, with one being like the lowest, like, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and four being the value, even, pre AI, the ability to add, leverage data to drive value has always been high, and yet businesses are not still doing it. Let's go tactical for a second, because if I think about what are the questions that I get asked the most when it comes to, let's use the term AI agency just for simplicity's sake, or let's just call it selling a service for business that involves AI automation. The biggest question I get a lot of is client acquisition. So, John, it'd be good to hear from your perspective, like real life story. How did you get your first kind of client, which you sold something to do with AI and automation? But what was your experience like? I think it'd be really beneficial to share.
Um, so CompuTrack, something that you may remember, I was all in. I'm still am all in on.
Yes.
So that was a solution that you actually built it, right? You did the one about competitor analysis where it goes in, it can evaluate a website, it can use customer data, customer reviews, and things like that. I saw that video and I said, that's interesting. And I put it together. And one of the things I do whenever you do an automation is the first thing I think is, do I know at least 10 people that I could talk to about this? I could pick up the phone or send an email and say, hey, can I get 10 or 15 minutes of your time just to show you this thing, right? That's my very first test. Is this something that I can market, right? Not necessarily is it marketable, but it's something that I can market. So just by a test, you can tell that a lot of my connections or a lot of my sales come from my current connections. So I don't do mass emails, I don't do cold emails or cold calling. I am in the society. I'm in a group of several groups of business owners in the local and national level, and I've made relationships with them over the years. So with CompuTrack, once I built the one that you did, I looked at it and said, well, how can I improve it, right? I said, well, what if I went to something like Glassdoor and I could pull employee reviews about it as well? And what if I went to some place like Reddit and see what are other similarly placed businesses doing and incorporate that into those reports. And so I actually built all that out. I called about 15 actually, but I got six callbacks. Say, hey, Jonathan, what's up? What you got? All right. Demoed it. They loved it. All six of them said, hey, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Now, these weren't just people I knew. These are people I knew from conversations. They always said the same. They were saying things about, oh, it'd be nice to know what the competitor's doing. I don't understand what's going on in the market. It's too hard for me to keep up with that stuff. So I already knew that they were kind of warm to the idea. And so when they saw it, they were like, hey, this is awesome. Then I managed to connect with one of my friends who's she owns a virtual assistant agency. And she's got about 30 VAs that work for her. And she's got a massive client list. So I presented it to her. I said, hey, this could be a great value add for your business. It's money coming into you in your pocket. Worked out a really nice referral program for her, where basically it's white labeled for her, but we do the reports on our side. Well, when I say we, I mean my VA, my virtual agent does it, and it sends out these reports to her clients. So she's making additional revenue, basically doing nothing. But I connected with her because of her client base. And I said, well, I can't sell. I'm not a good seller outside of people I know. And that even then, it's not even selling. It's just conversations I'm having with them. And then I say, hey, here's a solution. So that's how we basically launched that. And within the first month and a half, we had over 45 customers to this solution at $300 a month.
That's incredible. That's actually, I mean, how did that feel? Getting 45 customers at $300. Was that like, how did that feel when that happened?
It was unbelievable at first. I was like, whoa. My office manager, she called me and she's like, hey, we're getting these payments into an account, because I used one of the accounts that we have with Symbiont to collect the payments, and it was basically a dormant account that we just never closed. So she's like, I'm seeing money coming in here. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's going to be more, and I'm just sitting there like, wow, okay, this is cool and all. And also, busy setting up every agent or every client with their own AI solution to provide these analysis. So it was all around connections, who I already knew. One thing that I stress when it comes to selling AI or selling solutions, really, I believe that if you want to sell, you got to really get niche. And you say it all the time, right? The nicher you go, the faster you grow. Niche, niche, niche. Don't try to throw out cast a wide net. Find your niche and really get into that world. I mean, there are so many communities that you can get involved with. There are so many publications and groups and all sorts of stuff you can get involved with. And it doesn't cost you anything. But you really want to get in there, read those message boards, read the messages, respond, interact, connect, right? Make friends, and then talk. Don't talk about automation. I mean, whenever I go into a new group, I'm a learner. I just want to hear, what are you talking about? What words are you using, and really get into there. Once you do that, then down the road, you do get that ability to pick up the phone and say, hey, Jack, I got this thing. Can I just show it to you? And a lot of my sales come that way. I'm like, I just want to demo it. It's a prototype. Can I just show it to you? And they're like, yeah, sure. They see it. They're like, when can I get this? I'm like, oh, I was just asking if you wanted to see it for now.
It's incredible.
But also you're able to have those really nice conversations. And also I look at it from the perspective of, I'm not here to sell the world, but I would like to be a friend to the world. I like to be a friend to people. And, I have lots of business owners who could buy some of my solutions who don't. And that's cool. We still go out, we talk about, whatever we're doing, and, we have a good time. But they know that I'm there. They know I'm there. They know I'm in this space. And they know that I'm also in their world. That's the other problem with for me, for that, it's one thing like, okay, you're a content creator, right? let's say I made this automation, this really cool automation that makes YouTube video scripts and the B-roll for you, right? If I was to reach out to you, your first thought's going to probably be, what does this guy know about content creation, first of all? What does he know about YouTube and TikTok? Yes, it's a great automation. But if you came to me and you started throwing out just what you consider basic information I should know, and I can't answer it, you're going to be like, no, don't want to talk to you, right? Because you don't really get it. Recently, that whole honey thing, remember?
The honey scam, yeah.
The honey scam that came up, right? I have friends that are content creators, so I understand what the affiliate link means. You know, yeah, they're talking about those big guys who really it's not a big thing for them. But I know for little guys, that's like 100%. I think Linus Tech Talk says his affiliates is like 7% of his revenue. So for him, it's relatively small. But I know a beginner, that's 100%.
It can be, yeah.
That is a big deal to them. So that's why, you know, I started that conversation like, hey, you know, what can we do as an automation that could potentially block these kinds of things occurring? But that's only because I understood that. Now, immediately, some people said, well, why do we care? I'm like, well, you don't care because you don't see the after effects of that, you know? I know from my personal experience, you know, I have a YouTube channel. I use affiliate links. I never got anything from those. And then when the honey scam came out, I was like, oh, crap.
Maybe that's
what if that's what happened? But what did it do to me? Well, it took my content. I stopped doing content. I'm like, it's just not worth it, you know? All the hours I'm putting in, I did it. I mean, if you look on my channel, you'll see I got a bunch of content out there. I just stopped. And I said, well, how much more many other new creators stopped because they're like, well, I'm not getting anything from this. And they moved on to other things. So I saw a big problem with that. Again, I understood the community, so therefore I could see their problem a lot faster. For me to go to you, Jack, as a content creator, say, well, tell me what your problems are, you're going to be like, well, where do you want to start?
Yes.
You know, or I didn't even realize that there's a problem. One of the biggest problems that I observed with the honey scam is you go to some content creators, they don't even know if they were affected. So they don't even know it's a problem. And that's an issue. So if you're not involved with the community, be it content creation, auto mechanic, anything, you can't really talk to them, much less connect with them. And that's a big thing for me, is that connection. I'm sorry, I talked too long.
No, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful ref. I love that. And we'll put a link to the channel below so people can click and explore. I think it's a good point actually about there's something about increasing your surface area to different business owners and other people in the AI space. I like this T-shaped model. You need some breadth, you need some depth. I can't count the number of times where I've been in the community and someone said, oh, there's this thing. And I'm like, oh, that's actually freaking amazing. And you can connect two pieces together. Your whole thing about not leading with, hey, do you want to buy this solution? It's more like, dude, I bought some cool stuff. What do you think about it? And it's almost like, yeah, that like draws people in. And I kind of agree with you. I mean, we can do automations about mass email, but I really prefer, you can't be, here's the thing, right? You actually don't need to sell that many automations to that many businesses to win. You really don't. Like if you get one or two big clients, like Devin McPaul was on this podcast, he has 3 clients, he makes 30 to 80K a month. That's it. You don't need to go completely mass market and sell everything to everybody. You just pick one that you think's valuable, speak to your customer. You know, you're never too big to speak to your customer and understand what their problem sets are and see how you can solve the problem. And the big thing is like, guys, you know, we don't want problems, contrary to popular belief. It's like you think you're knocking down the door. Sometimes you're pushing on an open door. But like, this is a freaking hassle. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what the intelligence is. We don't know what's it. If you can actually solve the problem and issue for people, people are willing to pay for that 100%. And people just don't really particularly understand that. So I always really like, you know, if I think of customer acquisition, just to give some thoughts out there for those viewing and thinking about, well, that's amazing. What are the sort of things we talk about? I like the whale strategy. I like going very deep with one individual and add value. And I think the mindset, and this, I think, to be fair, bro, like, is one of the biggest observations I had in 2024 that blew my mind that no one does. You're one of the few people, Jonathan, who watched that video and said, I like it, I can build on that, make that better and sell it. And you took action, you did it. Most people don't take action. That's just the reality of the situation. Is actually going to clients, going deep, spending the time, and almost thinking about it as kind of like, hey, almost like you're already working with them and say, hey, Jonathan, you run this thing. Have you tried this thing? I think this is really helpful for you. You
Mhm.
do it in advance. Layla Hormozi's Twitter writer, the way he got hired is he wrote, I think it was like 200 tweets from Layla's podcast, completely unprompted. Say, hey, I want to give you this. I want to give you the value. You need to get testimonials. Work for. Thing is, it's not working for free. It's just that you're not getting paid today. And I think the successful business owners are always able to think long term. People that they're like their purview of when you don't get rich fast. If you need to get rich tomorrow, you're never going to build anything of significance. You have to, in my opinion, be willing to build this thing for 10 years. Like when I started the channel, I was like, I will do this literally for 10 or 20 years, even if it doesn't take off. I think that's the kind of long-term mindset that you need to bring to the table.
Yeah. You remember in one of your classes, one of your math classes that we had a discussion, I had said, when it comes to your niche, make it something you love.
Agreed. Yeah.
Don't get in there just because that's where all the money is. Get into some where you love it. And the reason I say that is, yes, you want to go deep into it, right? And I agree. You can make one, maybe two automations that are targeted just for your niche. And you could build a whole company, a whole career just on that. If you look at companies like Apple, I mean, that's what Apple was. It was like, we make hardware for designers. To this day, they still do the same thing. Now they have a bunch of other products, right, besides the Mac and things like that. But that's what they did, and that's what they still do. And that's what I believe that if you do find that one area, I want to solve the problem of tow truck drivers getting good tows. That's a whole career. You come up with a solution and you build on that, build on it. Also, it ties back to my whole ship it already, right? If you get something, get it in front of people. Don't sit there on your computer for weeks and months. Oh, I gotta. No, you're never gonna get the feedback. If you have something that's workable, I don't care if you think it's a train wreck. Have other people look at it and say that's a train wreck. Fix this, fix this, fix this. Great, you're getting that feedback, and now you can go back and forth, and you end up building something. I mean, if you think about some of the most popular platforms today, Dropbox, Instagram, they sucked when they first started,
No,
but they built and built and built, and now they're these powerhouses.
that's a good point. I feel it's this shiny object syndrome, and I always say the same thing that makes you great is the thing that holds you back. They just see opportunity and they want to do everything. They want to do this and then also this, and I've also got a SaaS, and I've got this thing, and I've got a channel, and I've got way too much. There are
Yeah,
people making 100 times what you make to do a tenth of what you do, and
yeah,
it's weird, isn't it? People, I feel, are allergic to going niche. They just, I feel, unless you're making what 1 to 300K a month, you really should be doing selling one thing to one person through one channel. Like I spoke to an AI startup that incidentally actually after the meet with me they got some funding from this guy, and their whole model was in the kind of like website building leveraging AI, and I had a conversation about it, and they're really awesome, flipping really cool guys. But we chatted about monetization, and one of the things I said on monetization, so like you need to simplify the way you make money because it's so contingent on this upsell and that upsell and this and this. I said like it should be, because the more assumptions you bake into your business plan, the more complicated it gets and the less likely it is to take off. Like really, really, really keep it flipping simple. One product, one client, one avatar, selling in one particular thing. And by the way, I speak from experiences because I've committed that that error.
mhm,
I've done multiple channels, multiple businesses, multiple products because it makes sense. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's flip and do it. But you just get distracted, and you
yeah.
need to be very laser focused with this stuff. So, Jonathan, one question we get a lot as well is on pricing. What's your thoughts on when it comes to pricing services to business? How do you think about that? What are some of the frameworks that you like to use when you think about that?
So I'm all about value pricing, right? I don't believe in hourly pricing. I think you cheapen your brand when you do that, and you
Yeah.
make yourself so that you could be taken over by anybody else. All I got to do is come 20% cheaper than your hourly price, and you're out of business. So I look at value. What is this saving you? Let's use an example with these voice agents, right? We have these call center agents now where you can make a agent that can take inbound calls, right? It can answer the phone first ring. It can provide information about your business. It can schedule appointments. It can change appointments. Let's say simple. It's a it's funny, right? When AI, we talk about, oh, it's a simple. That's a simple one, right? But there's a lot of moving pieces. But it's relatively not. It's not a hard lift to make these agents to do these things. I have to look at it from the perspective of, okay, if I'm going to approach a doctor's office, they want to be able to um, use this agent to field some initial inquiries, don't provide any medical advice, and also schedule appointments and maybe even follow up on these appointments. What do they currently do now? Right. Well, now there's a human being that they hired, and let's say over here in the states, minimum wage is still low, but it's about, let's say it's $15 an hour for that role. No, we'll go to $20 an hour. $20 an hour for that role. Over a span of a week, that business owner is going to spend about $800 a week for that person to sit at that desk, plus other expenses, taxes, insurance, things like that. So over a month, they're looking at about $3,200. So now that receptionist isn't doing just that. They're also updating records. They're dealing with the insurance companies. They're doing all sorts of other things. So out of that $3,200, how much is the phone answering and appointment setting? What's that breakdown? And again, this is a conversation I would have with a doctor, or a physician's office manager. What is that doing, right? For every time that person misses a call, what is that costing you, right? Because that call could have been a appointment. And then from there, I can put together a formula to say, all right, just this function, this part of it, let's just say it's worth $200 a month to them, right? So I then turn the question around. Could you hire somebody for $200 a month to answer the phone and make those appointments? No, I couldn't. How much is an average call worth to you for a new client? Well, once the insurance gets done, let's say it's worth about $200. All right, so if my agent can just take over, can just save one call for you, it's already paid itself, right? Well, yes. How many calls do you think you're missing per month or per week? And they'll tell me, I could tell you, it's not what I think, I can tell you the calls we've missed. We missed 10 calls last month, let's say. All right, so 10 calls at $200 a piece, that's $2,000 you lost. Now, if I was to make an agent for you and you only pay $200 a month, that means you could recover $1,800. Is that worth that to you? Well, yes, of course. Not to mention, you don't have to worry about that receptionist getting distracted when she's doing something like entering information because the phone rang. She has to stop what she's doing, answer the phone, be on the call with them for 10 or 15 minutes, figure out where she was before it start up again. So once you add up all that together, they start to see in their head the numbers make sense, you know.
100%.
And so value pricing. But again, that goes back to my original point. You got to really understand the industry, understand what are their pain points, what is the workflow like for them. So now, when you're having those conversations, you can talk about, how much is that costing? How many did you lose? How much is that worth to you? Now I can sell you, all right, $500 setup fee, $200 a month. And I also prefer recurring revenue for two reasons. Number one, recurring revenue, that's how, businesses, as you well know, it's all about the cash flow.
Yeah.
Right? And the minute the cash flow stops, you're out of business. That game over, right? But when you get recurring revenue, now I can budget for that, right? If I have 10 clients paying $300 a month, that's $3,000 a month of cash flow I'm getting in that I can work with. The second reason I like it is, especially when it comes to automations, yes, you can build an automation. Let's say you built this automation for a voice agent and you managed to get it so maybe you're using N8N, 11 Labs, and you have it all self-hosted. You build it. Let's say you sell it for $5,000 to them. Boom, here you go. Guess what happens when that thing breaks?
They give you a call.
Now, did I put a maintenance contract in there? Maybe, hopefully. But even the maintenance contract, I couldn't make it too much, right? So I don't know. maybe I got to maybe the issue is the workflow I'm using. 11 Labs changed everything. I got to reprogram the whole darn thing. Am I charging enough money in my maintenance for that? I don't know. Also, let's say there's an upgrade. How am I going to sell that to them? Well, Jonathan, you know what you sold us, it works just fine. We don't need your upgrade, so we're going to be fine here. As opposed to, again, keeping it as a monthly revenue coming in. You're going to get the upgrades. If there's a problem, I'm going to fix it because I'm not just getting that one time 5,000. I'm getting the 500 setup, 200 a month, or whatever it is between X amount of clients. And that makes it worth it for me because now I'm basically increasing my reach because now I'm not just fixing one problem, I'm fixing a problem for 10 people at the same time. So,
scale of that, yeah.
yeah, I can scale it a lot better. So the biggest thing for me is understand your niche, understand their problems, understand what they're paying, and also look at the competition. If I was to go, there are telephone answering services. There are actual people there's a companies. I used to run one when I first came out of the Navy, where you get a number and they can call into this number and talk to a human. How much are they charging? What are their pain points? What are their problems? Right? I mean, when I talk about going deep, go deep. What is the competition's pain problems and how do I fix that? Or how am I better? Because that's going to help me with my marketing as well as building on a solution for it.
That's beautiful, man. I think, you've inspired, you remember two things. The first thing is that you talked about what are the competitors doing. That's actually quite profound because of all the things you need to innovate on as a new business owner, how you acquire clients is not one of them. I've been in this situation before where I'm trying a completely brand new way. I speak from experience of trying to get customers. And it's like, who do you know that has driven profitable business from this channel? Like there's a guy in school games, first month I won. He made how much did he make? Like 55K that month. I sat him down. I said for him, show me button click by button click everything you did to make that income. He opened up LinkedIn. He said, dude, here you go. And he showed me. And my biggest takeaway, it was so friggin' simple. I was like, that's all you're doing. It's like the way you need to look at what's working, like how people are actually, getting these clients. The second thing on the monetization thing is I like the point you make about recurring revenue is awesome. The other build that I add to that is that the less frequent the billing cycle, the higher the average value is. So you'll often see many enterprise clients trying to bill on an annual basis or quarterly basis or monthly. What we know from school is that like if you're on quarterly billing is lower than monthly and annual is lower than quarterly. So if you can proposition that in a way that's actually a great discount for individuals, that's a phenomenal way. And the other tidbit I also learned was that people have this like buying cycle mood. So if they already buy the first month, you could say that you're locked in. By the way, if you want to lock in an annual price at X discount or whatever it is because of da, we can sort that out right now as well. And you're best doing an annual conversation at the onboard side of things. I think having that relationship touch point with the customer at the beginning is fine. And it's also, I think, don't be afraid to have a good conversation with a client. You don't have to rush to sell them immediately. Do you know what I mean? Like it's okay to let things run. And if they're not a good fit, that's fine. So I think this also brings us on nicely to where the market's going. So we've talked about how you educate clients. We talked about pricing, which I think is freaking really interesting. Let's talk about where the market's going. What do you see, Jonathan, happening in the next sort of, I guess say 1 year and then pushing out to 3 to 5? I know it's so difficult to say. What sort of trends are you expecting and how can people watching this podcast who want to get in this incredible industry, like what sort of things do they need to be thinking about to sort of set up for success in the next couple of years?
Here's an example I like to use, and I think it applies a lot with AI. Back in the 1800s, I think it was the 1840s, I can't remember. Here in the States, we had the California Gold Rush, right? And we had tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people rushing from the East Coast to get to California to get gold. One thing I tell people is, how many gold diggers do you know by name? Of course, nobody knows these people, right? I said, now, can you name at least 2 companies that started or excelled during the gold rush industry and are still going strong to this day? And again, most people can't tell me. And I told them two names. I said, well, actually, I can give them three, but I give them two. So you ever heard of Wells Fargo?
Wow.
Yeah. Ever heard of Western Union? Yeah. Ever heard of Levi Jeans? Yeah. So those are three companies that got their push during the gold rush. Here we are almost 200 years later, and you still know their names. I said a lot of times it's not the ones who are actually in the gold mine who actually built sustainable businesses. In fact, we know a lot of those gold miners, they went in the mines, they got a bunch of gold, they went to town, they got drunk, and they lost all their money, right? But Wells Fargo, Western Union, Levi, and some other companies, they excelled and they're still going on strong. So when I talk about where this industry is going, I like to tell people look at not just making automations, but what are the supporting entities of it? One of the biggest things, and you touched on at the very beginning, um, we're on that far left side, right? A lot of people here, we are cutting edge leaders in this field. But you still get that huge right side where they don't even know what ChatGPT is. And there's a huge, there's a lot of, I saw a thing, I think they said only about 15% of the world's population actually uses ChatGPT.
This
So
is
that's a huge amount of people don't even know it exists. So what does that mean? There's going to need to be training and education that has to be done. A lot of people are afraid of the AI changing their or taking away their jobs, which, and I'll be truthful, that will happen, but not as badly as people think it is. But people need to also start being able to transition. How do I do what I currently do and incorporate using AI? Though that's going to be very important. Similar to when PCs came out, right? An accountant was used to using pen and paper and writing out stuff. They had to learn how to use spreadsheet programs, right, to incorporate into their work, their lives. So, and another thing that's happening, another example I like to use, Apple,
mm,
Wozniak and Jobs. I call them the dynamic duo, and I'm sure you've done your research and you've read about those two. Everybody knows about Steve Jobs. If you're really into tech, you know who Wozniak was, right? Steve Jobs was not a technologist. Steve Jobs was a marketer. He was a designer.
mm.
So Wozniak was the guy who actually built the hardware of Apple. And the two of them got together. If you look at an interview of Wozniak to this day, he's gotten better, but you could tell he's an introvert. He's a geek. He's like, look, I don't really want to talk to people. I don't know how to approach people like that. I'm about jumpers and and doing the hardware stuff. But because those two got together, Apple became a really big company and an influential company even to this day. So for a lot of AI automators, I say find your Steve Jobs, because a lot of them, that you said earlier, a lot of people are like afraid of niching,
Mm.
and I take it as they're not afraid. They don't have those conversations. They're like, look, I just want to sit in my computer lab and just make solutions all day. And then, oh, that's neat. I can do this and come on my own. But it takes somebody, you got to get in front of that customer. You got to have to sit down, have a face to face, be it virtual or in person, and talk. And maybe you're not that person. That's fine. Find somebody that is. Partner up with them,
Mm.
right? I would love to find a jobs. Somebody who can, hey, I'm going to go to the Chamber of Commerce meeting. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go talk to this convention. Hey, I got a line of 50 friends I made last night at a bar, that I can call. And great, yes, do that kind of a thing. And that's probably where my whole reseller thing came from. I'm like, I can talk. I enjoy it. But I know there are people that are just power, just, I'm sure you're like that, Jack. You can just walk into a room and walk out with like 10 friends and like, hey, I got 10 new friends. But a lot of people in this left side are not that person. So yeah, fine. So that's where I think also, if you're going to be successful, you need to be able to get out and have those conversations. Where do I see this going in the next year? AI is just going to get bigger. It's going to become more in place. There's some ethical things that we can have a whole conversation around ethics around what's going to happen and how we have to address it. But it's going to become more and more. It's already a part of it. I heard somebody say, soon, within 3 years, no part of your life will not be involved with AI. And I said, no, it's already here.
It's
You
already.
may not know it, but AI is running all over the place. It's just
I
you,
agree.
as a consumer, you don't see it yet, but it's there.
It's true, and just to dive on that point about AI, the inextricability of AI at the moment. Like I said, okay, Jonathan, if I took AI away from you right now, you'd probably feel like you've lost your phone. Like, how much do you use ChatGPT or all these models? It's so ingrained. The point you made about second order effects of I think is quite clever about the. I mean, I'm assuming Levi jeans started because people needed kind of durable jeans to mine and, well, shovel, whatever it is. So they built it. I think that's really interesting. Like, if, for instance, if you believe there'll be a rise of, okay, this actually is NVIDIA's strategy. How they grew so big is they recognize that, because initially, what people don't realize about NVIDIA is they had a very risky strategy. Their strategy was, we have these chips, they invested so much money into it. All the
Hmm.
companies said it's too expensive. We don't need it at that level of quality. But they knew for certain that the market was like literally going to the ceiling, and because of that, they just backed it, and they actually ignored their customers. And Jensen Huang did a really interesting interview on that. He said, like, you're never going to hear anybody tell you to ignore your customers. But he had that hindsight to say, and this comes back to the market is like the most important thing when we talk about how you grow. He saw where the market was going and said, if it is true that this thing is going up, then there will absolutely be this need. And you want to go where the cue ball's going, not where the cue ball is. So that second order and sometimes third order effects. The reality is most people don't even think. Most people aren't bothering, number one. Those that are bothering won't be consistent with it. That's great news for you if you're consistent. And the third thing is those that are thinking about what's the here and now. Where's the goal? They're not thinking of the second and third and fourth order effects of what's going to happen. The other
Yes.
thing I think, we talk here about where this AI going. I think the nobody would disagree with the statement that AI automations has been innovative and disruptive in the last 2 years. I don't think anyone would challenge that. But for me, it's the exponentiality of how quickly that's actually changing. As the models get more powerful, they become more capable. We have this AI agent side that's coming up, which I think is going to be significant. We've got hardware that's changing. We have robots coming down in the future. But every single frontier, I really believe, is going to be drastically different. So I suppose the question is, Jonathan, how do you feel if we book into two buckets. One is people who want to get involved in sell AI services, and those that don't. What are those two groups of individuals, need to be doing right now?
If you want to get involved with AI right now, I would say jump in. Right, watch your videos. Start simple. I mean, no code automations is a great, easy way to get started. And once you are in there, you'll get this natural tension. You're going to want to go deeper, right? I start off with Make, and you hear me in the community, I talk about N8N all the time now. I'm
Yeah.
like, I got to use N8N because I want to get closer. I'm trying to get closer to the source, if you will, and I want more control. So you're going to naturally progress in those areas. Um, Also, partner up. Don't back when I started in IT back in the '90s, it was a solo sport. We didn't have the internet. We had bulletin boards. You basically had these thick manuals that were garbage that you had to figure out how to make this system work. But now we have such an open community, especially in your school community, where if you have a problem, if you have a question, if you want to partner, if you need advice, you can get almost real time information. It amazes me when I just see the conversations where you, Adam, and none of the moderators get involved, and yet the guy's problem's fixed.
Yeah.
That's I think that's a sign of a healthy community.
Agreed. I agree.
But also try to learn as much as you can about your niche. It's a two-way street. You can do the automation, but also figure out what's my niche and let me get involved with that niche too, because you got to pair those two together to make solutions that are going to sell and people are going to want. Um, and like I said earlier, you have a lot of groups, go to conferences, read what they read, go where they go. If you want to make automation for real estate, find a real estate agent. Here in Florida, I can throw a dime and I'm gonna hit one,
Yeah.
and say, hey, look, I want to partner with you. I want to learn about what you do. How do you get your listings? What do you do? What is the MLS? Ask those questions and be a student. So you're learning in two different fronts, and then you can start putting it together. And then that's when you have that killer software, you or a solution, you know exactly who to go to, and they know exactly who you are. Now, for those who don't want to be involved directly with AI, you know, I I I think yeah, Kathleen Kelnis, I love her. She is awesome in the community. She's a marketer. She is really good at what she does. If you ever have a conversation with her, she's a really, I know you have, but
Yeah.
social media and, you can give her an idea and within 5 minutes, she's like, bop, 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 done. Nope, not good. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And she's like, do this instead. But I wish we'd have more people like her with different specialties. Yes, she does do AI. She has her solution now, the agent solution that she has, which is great. But I would love it if we had more people coming in the community. It's like, look, I don't really want to build them. I'm a marketer. I'm a salesperson. I would love to meet you all and let's partner up. Let me be your voice. Let me help you get the word out. We
Mm.
can make something beautiful. I would love to see those. Now, true, if you're going to come in, you're going to have some interest in AI, right? But, like, look, I really don't want to make it. I have ideas, but I really want to use my skill to bring you all forward and to do these things. I think that we need more of that. But also, I would say collaborate as the final thing. Collaborate with other builders.
Mm.
There is so much talent in your community alone, right? 1,600 members strong with great ideas, and if you're in the community, follow me. I drop things sometimes like, hey, look, I get this idea. Here's the full business plan of how it works. I'm not going to pursue it because I have other things going, but maybe one of you will pick it up. And maybe three or four pick it up, and you all will make some magic happen, right? Because there is so much opportunity coming, and it's gonna get even bigger. When you start looking at a business operation, there's a lot coming. And also a piece of advice: I concentrate in the SMB market, but I tell people don't be afraid to go into the enterprise. Enterprise organizations, they are a hot mess. Even
Exactly.
though you might see this multi-million dollar, billion dollar, 500, no, there are problems upon problems inside those organizations. Be the one that's brave enough to go to that front door to say, let's build something to fix this. Right now, data sanitation is a big field right now because they're not ready for it, and they
It's
would
it's
kill to get us automation to do that.
it's like you say, isn't it, as well? Like solving, these dirty problems is very profitable. So, Jonathan, if people want more Jonathan, they want to work with you, maybe they want to hire you and stuff, how do they get in touch with you? And then I'd also love to get a number one book recommendation, some knowledge that people can go and access and read to level up. One that's been particularly, it doesn't have to be AI related, but something that's been impactful for you. So, how do they get in touch with you if they need you? And any book recommendations for the audience?
Before that, I want to bring up something because there's another part. There's another success, and when you mentioned the book thing, that well,
Okay, let's bring that in. I like that.
that
Yeah,
that
perfect.
figured me out. There is a need for experts in tools. Let me say that again. There is a need for experts in tools. DeepGram, right? We,
Mm.
we know about DeepGram. We know about Eleven Labs. Know about all these new things that come up all the time. If you don't want to build automations for solutions or things like that, but you do like a certain tool, I say dive deep into that tool. Here's something that happened to me a while back. Back in 2007, yeah, I'm old. Back in 2007, I was doing a Exchange upgrade on a piece of software on Microsoft's Exchange server. And on that CD, I was bored. It's middle of the night. I was looking at all the files on there, and they had this thing on there called Team Server. And I was like, "What's Team Server?" So I grabbed it, and I threw it into one of our test servers, and went through this whole hell of a thing. But I was fascinated by it,
Mm.
totally fascinated by what this software could do. And I was living in Hawaii at the time. I was in Honolulu, Hawaii, working for Hawaiian Telecom. And about 2 days after that incident, we got a ticket that came through the help desk that nobody could answer. And it said, we're using this thing called Team Server and we can't get it to work.
Got it.
And I was shocked. I was like, somebody's using this software in here? So I went to go see them, and it was a SQL software. And I said, oh, here's the problem. I fixed it. and they were so happy that somebody can fix it. And I remember I went to Jamba Juice. I don't know. Do you have Jamba Juice in the UK?
Not to my knowledge, bro. No.
You would love it. It's shake
I'll take that as
smoothies,
an action. I'll write that down. I'll write that down.
Jamba Juice. But we were at a Jamba Juice with my best friend Muck, and we were walking back to the headquarters, and I looked at Muck and I said, "I think I'm going to quit today." And he
Wow.
said, "What? What are you doing?" And I literally went. I went to the office and I went to my boss, the director of IT, and I said I wanted to work on this thing called Team Server.
Mm.
And he said, "No, Jonathan, it's not going anywhere. I need you to go do these other things instead." And I said, "I quit right there on the spot. Didn't think about it. Didn't. I said I quit." And he looked at me. He said, "Jonathan, this is a Microsoft piece of software. Let me tell you, I've been around for a while. Microsoft does this all the time. They float software out there, and they kill it later on. You're about to throw away your career for it." I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." And I got my stuff. I went to a Best Buy. I bought a huge monitor and a new laptop. Spent like $6,000. Go back to my apartment, and I'm walking down the street like, gosh, I just threw away my job. I just bought this expensive equipment, and I'm living in one of the most expensive cities in the world. Am I a nutcase?
Crazy. Yeah.
But I dove deep in that software. Long story short, Team Server became something known, and a lot of your viewers probably have heard of it. Team Server became known as SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint.
Wow.
And I dove deep in that software. I was one of the first people that was qualified to teach the curriculum. I was one of the first people to get the certification in it. I mean, I went deep into this software. I was getting people calling me wanting to pay like $10,000, $12,000 to have me fly out to their location to teach them how to use it. I was being called into meetings and everything else. Eventually, I ended up publishing three books for Microsoft on SharePoint.
Wow.
And for many years, I was an expert in this piece of software. I haven't touched it in years now. And now it's a part of the stack. If you use Microsoft Office, there is a SharePoint component that you're dealing with.
Wow.
And again, I do it. So I say all that to say, there is a need for tool expertise. Deepgram, to use an example, it does some neat stuff. It has other things it can do, but most people can't get into the nitty gritty.
Got it.
So if that could be another way, maybe you become an expert in some of these tools. You're taking a gamble, right? If I remember back to the .com era, you had Amazon, we had eBay, we had Webvan, we had Pets.com. Of those four I just mentioned, only two of them survived. So really, if you find a piece of software that you really love or a solution that you really love and everything else, get deep. Go to the developer forums. Most companies, IT companies, have a Discord channel, right? Get involved with the conversations. Talk to the developers. Be a part of their panels. Do YouTube videos demonstrating how to use it. You can also actually carve out a very profitable niche doing that, and probably end up getting some pretty cool stuff. I mean, I flew around the world. I flew around the world doing a project for a very influential British bank that I know for this day uses a SharePoint solution that I architected.
That's incredible. That's
And
beautiful. This idea that, the niche doesn't have to be this crazy thing. You can go very specific and do a tech tool. I think that's a phenomenal point, actually. Often missed because everyone's trying to go for the same big picture thing. Not necessary, as you kind of demonstrate.
yeah. Now, as far as a book recommendation, Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. Okay.
Atomic Habits.
An excellent book.
I can't remember the name of the author, but excellent book. Especially if you have a lot of bad habits, or you find yourself you can't do certain things because of your makeup, if you will, it's a great guide to getting on point and getting focused. Like that's something that you talk about a lot. Like, look, focus in, and all. But I love that book, and I read it years ago, and I still to this day I can remember it.
My favorite quote from that book is, "You don't rise to your aspirations, you fall to the level of your systems."
Yes,
It's powerful.
yes, very powerful. As far as getting in touch with me, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Jonathan Lightfoot. So if you want to go to LinkedIn, you can go there. But I spent a lot of time in the school community. I mean, ask anybody, they'll tell you. I think people get sick of saying my name always
They
up
definitely
there.
don't. They definitely
And
don't.
but yeah, definitely reach out. Sometimes I ask questions that are crazy. They may seem a little crazy, but I also want people to know that I'm involved with certain conversations. Those questions don't come from just anywhere.
Mm.
So a lot of times I'm just like, hey, think about, like I did one a couple weeks ago where I said, anybody talking about AI and robotics yet? And what happened the very next day? AI robotics. Everybody's like, oh, AI and robotics is the next big thing. And I'm like, yeah,
It is.
everybody can answer that question. There's an evolution occurring in robotics right now. But yeah, you can follow me there and on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn, I post every day. Just to give everybody a fair warning, um, if you haven't done the Flux, the Flux demo that Jack did, you need to get in there and to get that done. All right, because if you go on LinkedIn, you will notice that there are a lot of pictures of me in there. Yeah, those aren't me.
You've really cracked that. You've really cracked that one down. Well, Jonathan, I want to say, like, I think you've made some flipping excellent points, and just from my perspective, the stuff you share in the community is absolute gold. You are somebody who challenges the norm and what people are thinking, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you so much. And dude, I'm super stoked to have you back on in the future, where we can say, dude, you won't believe what's just happened over the past X amount of time, dude. So thank you so much for joining us, man. We'll
Thanks for
put this
having me.
down below, link to the book so you can jump it. And bro, we will see you in the future on a different episode. I'll catch you inside the community.